Okay, and we're live. Boo, what's going on, man? How are you?
What's going on, man? I'm good, just hanging out.
Good, good. So, for those of you guys listening that don't know, Boo was a two-timer in high school, right? From
Yes, sir.
campus, right?
Yep.
So, campus, that's 6A.
Yep.
Two-timer from Kansas, 6A, a part of a very, very unique club. You know, there's only a select few that get one, let alone two.
Right.
So, it's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
So, let's get you some backstory here. Two-timer from
Okay.
Kansas. Then where'd you go after that?
Uh, I went to Northeastern Oklahoma Junior College.
Northeastern. Okay.
Yep. It's in a small town. It's spelled Miami, but people call it Miami because it's so small in Oklahoma.
Right. Right.
But, I went there for 2 years. My freshman year, I wrestled 125. Long story short, I ended up getting fourth in the country my freshman year. Uh, I had the most falls in the least amount of time at the national tournament. I think I had 5 pins en route to fourth. Um, then my next year, I end up making the change and going to 133, and I end up winning an individual national title. Only lost one match on the year in the regional finals. Um, and yeah, I win a national title, and then I go ahead and graduate with my associate's degree, and then after that, go to Minnesota for 2 years, and then now 2 years here at Nebraska. So
Right.
it's
Because
been
you got
a journey.
that good COVID year and everything
Yep,
else added to it.
yep.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, what did it look like at Minnesota for you?
So Minnesota, let's see here. I'm not gonna lie, probably so I get there December 27th, I believe. They're wrestling a duel against Wisconsin. Uh, I think the very next week on Sunday, it might have been 2 weeks maximum. But I go wrestle an open tournament. I win the open tournament. Um, and then a couple of days after that, my coaches tell me, "Hey, we're going to throw you in the starting lineup." So I'm wrestling Friday, Sunday, and then from that point on, I end up going to the Big Ten tournament. I get beat out of the Big Ten tournament that year. It was super tough, super packed. I only had 2 to 3 months in a Division 1 room,
Right.
fully training that lifestyle, fully getting everything that the Division 1 kids get. Compared to junior colleges where you might not have the resource, the training might not be as good, your partners might not be as good, and stuff like that. But I end up going to the Big Tens. That's the same year that Nationals gets canceled for COVID. So Nationals doesn't happen that year. I get beat out of Big Tens that year. I go 1-2. Um, the following year, I'm still the starter at 133. Uh, have a okay season, nothing crazy. End up placing eighth at the Big Tens. I probably should have been like realistically fifth, maybe fifth to sixth and something like that. But I end up qualifying for nationals. Don't get the best draw at the national tournament, but you can't really complain. I wrestled Louis Hayes, first match, All American. I lose that one to a close match, I think 5-2, something like that. And then I go wrestle a kid from Bucknell by the name of Dylan Miller, who's up at 141 this year, I believe.
Yeah, and he's a
And
hammer too.
yeah, I pinned him actually, kind of crazy, and I end up pinning him, and then I wrestle Michael McGee my next match, and I get beat by him, and he also goes on to All American. So just a tough spot in the bracket, and didn't go the way I wanted it to. And then after season, kind of do some reevaluating with myself, and I'm paying out of state tuition to go to school there, and it's just I'm really asking myself, like, I saw a progress in my wrestling, but I'm still saying to myself, I got an extra COVID year now. I still have a red shirt. I've never redshirted in college. I just started all 4 years, so I've really taken into consideration of that, and then I end up entering the transfer portal. And when I entered the transfer portal, was probably one of the scariest moments of my life. You don't really know you don't really know your worth until you enter the transfer portal. I'll
Yeah.
just say that
Yeah.
while
Future's
you're out of
uncertain.
school. And so I'll just say that I had a lot of schools contact me, so that was very reassuring throughout the
Right.
process. And ultimately, I just think it was like a Tuesday night. Coach Manning calls me, "Hey man, you want to come up and check out a visit and everything?" And so I end up driving down the next day and come down here, have a visit, and I just loved the coaching staff here, and they were good guys and stuff. So I ended up committing to Nebraska, and then I redshirt my first year here. I think I wrestle 4 open tournaments. I want to say might have been 5, but 4 or 5, and I go undefeated on the year. Get redshirt of the year last year for Nebraska, and then this year I was a starter for the first half of the season, and I was wrestling all right. I probably should have won a majority of the matches I lost, and but stuff happens. It's wrestling. That's gonna happen, and then ultimately I end up getting replaced, and I get to wrestle the last 2 duels, and then my coach has decided to go with somebody else this year. So,
Right,
uh,
right,
but that's pretty much it for my wrestling career now.
right.
So,
So, what are you thinking about future plans? You gonna try to get on a world team, Olympics, start fighting, or maybe even
um,
coaching?
yeah. So for me, I mean, fighting's always been an avenue for me. I feel like I'm just kind of a scrappy dude when you see me wrestle already,
Yep.
and so I kind of like that. And I have a huge advantage with my length and height for my weight. A lot
Yeah.
of guys that are 135 pounds, 125 pounds, they're probably 5'7". I'm 6 foot, so I got a lot of advantages there and some
Yeah.
uniqueness about myself. But yeah, most definitely. I mean, I've thought about fighting. Coaching is a passion of mine too. I want to be able to give back to the younger generations, and I want someone that I didn't have, or something that I couldn't have for these kids that are up and coming, because I know what the process is. I know what it's like. I know how hard it is when you're coming out of Kansas, let alone, trying to get to the next level and having to go to JUCO or D1, whatever your route may be, but just being a being a crutch for these guys that they can use and lean on, and just making an impact. That's what I really want to do. So
Right.
I would say, yeah, either coaching or fighting somewhere in that area. But as far as competing for wrestling, I would say I don't see that happening in my near future at all.
Right, right. Yeah, and I mean that kind of rolls right into, my next question, where you say you'd like to give back because you felt like, maybe you weren't as prepared as you should be coming out of Kansas, into college and let's talk a little bit about that. Do you feel like you weren't quite where you should be, coming out of Kansas as a high schooler?
Um, I would say, my route for high school was very unorthodox. Um, from the time I was 6 years old till I was 12 to 13, I'm going to Tulsa, JOC, all these tournaments, and I'm ranked pretty high in the country when I'm a little kid. And then I get to high school as a freshman, and I'm 92 pounds.
Right.
So I wrestle JV my freshman year. My sophomore year, I get beat out of the regional tournament with like I had a astronomical record. I mean, I think I was 42-3, and I end up the season 43-5 or something like that.
Right.
But don't qualify for the state tournament. So the only time I went to state was my junior senior year, and I won it both times I went. But I would just say, man, just I didn't understand how to be a pro before I needed to be a pro.
Right.
Just like the guidance that I would need, or like the dedication it would take at this level. I wasn't really like too aware of. Like, of course, my whole life when I was growing up, I wanted to be the best wrestler. And in the result of me just focus on wrestling, I was being the best wrestler that I could be. But there's a lot that goes into it as far as like your grades, the classroom, rehab, just what you're eating, how you're feeling your body. There's a lot that goes into it that I just didn't really factor in or know much about when I'm just trying to focus on wrestling and winning, which is ultimately all I want to do. So
Right. Yeah,
yeah,
and I think, kind of when you and I were back there, and you were a little bit younger than me. What year did you graduate?
2017.
2017. So yeah, so you were a year younger than me, but I think it was definitely spotty, around the
Yeah,
state where, you could be in an amazing program, or you could be in one that just was not good at all.
right.
And I think that's gotten a lot better over the years, and then the skill gap you get between, where when we were in high school, let's be honest, 321A and most of 4A, besides maybe 3 or 4 schools, the competition skill gap was just ridiculous,
Oh yeah, 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 most definitely.
yeah. And now, I started coaching about 5 years ago, and you're just kind of seeing this transition now in about the last 3 years where some of these smaller schools, are building big programs and are
Yep,
just absolute hammers. You got Hoxie up there in Northwest
yep,
Kansas, crazy, crazy good. You got Rose Hill down there south of Wichita, super, super good. And that's a 321A and a 4A school.
right.
Plus you got the Augustas, and the Andels and the
Oh, yeah,
Tonganoxies.
yeah,
So it's kind of nice to see that you're getting more of a high level wrestling understanding. And
right,
now that I've kind of started coaching a little bit more on the national teams and stuff, it seems to me like that gap where we're finishing a lot better at national tournaments and at the national duels and stuff like that. It's good to see. I think we're kind of progressing a lot further
right.
than what we maybe were back then, so that's nice. But how big of a jump was it from JUCO, to that Division One? Night and day, or pretty similar?
Um, I mean, there's differences, right? So, it's man, it's real tough. It's tough to describe, you know. JUCO is just it's straight mud. It's dog mentality, you know. It's just straight sink or swim, right? Like the dorms there, they're not very nice. Brick walls. The cafeteria food is not that great, right? Our weights, they got rust on them. They're not even like real weights, you know. So,
Right,
um, it's just like real gritty, you know. It's like really like how bad do you really want to make it out of here?
right,
How bad do you want a shot to go get what you want or you think that you deserve, right? And so but then when you get to D1 and you see it all, you know, you're like, "Oh my god, dude, this is crazy." Like the wrestling room I walked in at Minnesota had 6 mats in it, you know? My
right,
junior college had 2.5, and it was just straight. We got a curtain in there, we got soft mats, you know, there's padding, it's all nice. We got a fingerprint to get into school, you know, it's like
right.
it's just crazy the transition, but I will say, if I have to give credit to anybody, obviously, you know, my dad played a huge part in my wrestling career and my uncle as well, who coached me in high school. But my junior college coach, um, guy named Joe Renfro, you know, and Dustin Mays up there and Casey Powell, Mark Hobson, these guys were there when I was in junior college. But what he did is just, I mean, he had a system and his system was great, you know, and it was never a hinge in the system or hey, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that different. No, no, no. We're doing the same thing. Okay, we're gonna do it. We're gonna pedal it down and just we're gonna go hard and it's gonna be tough. But I knew what I was doing every day, right? So the system that I had, it prepared me for Division 1. Just go in there and say, hey, you know what? Okay, this is what I got to do today. I got to get this done, this, that, and you know, ultimately, it just helped me out a little bit because I wasn't one of those kids that qualified out of high school, you know, to go to a Division 1, but I would say that was just a lack of knowledge, like for myself of knowing, hey, the requirements to go D1, right? I didn't really think about all of that until I was a junior in high school after I already won state, right?
Right,
And then by that point, it's a little too late in your high school career to start thinking about that stuff. So, but ultimately, yeah, I mean, my junior college coach, he just had a system that was great. And I mean, obviously the biggest difference is the competition level, right?
yeah,
That's the ultimately biggest difference. But you got to also think too, you know, I spent 2 years at a junior college. If another kid spends 2 years at a Division 1, he could still develop even if he's not that guy, right? Like you're gonna get better in these Division 1 rooms. And not that you're not in junior college rooms because you are. Like naturally a lot of kids go to junior college because of uh multitude of different reasons, right? But whatever that reason may be, you know, ultimately the challenge is gonna be like how you adapt to your situation, right? And how you attack your situation. So for me, that's kind of how I looked at it at both Division 1 schools that I went to. So
right.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, and it just kind of seems like a lot of the times, coming straight out of high school, 18-year-old kid, it takes a special kid, to be able to go to a Division 1 college straight out of high school. I think that JUCO route really helps a lot of kids, develop not only just in wrestling, but maturity.
right.
You're sending an 18-year-old kid out on his own 9 times out of 10. I'm thinking they're staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning because they ain't got anybody yelling at them to go to bed. They're skipping class. They're not doing their homework. Probably not eating the best. So give them that 2 years in JUCO to kind of develop and get a little bit more mature and send them on their way. I think it does real well. I will say that I think the biggest issue with Kansas as far as getting into, that extremely elite, just community, I guess, like you got in PA and you've got in Iowa and stuff like that.
Right.
So we don't have any Division 1 schools here.
Nope.
There's no programs, and I mean, Hayes is a great D2, but that's
Ultimately, the way I look at it is, and this is, I mean, what you're saying right now is just crazy to me. It's like deja vu, right? Because this is something that I've dreamed of for a while. You get people go on Twitter all the time, or people go on talk forums and they talk and this and that, right? Oh man, Kansas, K State, this or that, KU, Wichita State. I mean, we got three Division 1 schools, right? But like people have to put in the action to make this stuff happen, right?
yeah,
Like if you don't go let it be known to an athletic director or the community, hey, this is what Kansas needs, right? I mean, I think right now we've probably got we easily have over 20 active Division 1 kids right now wrestling in the country at Division 1 level, I would say.
yeah,
Now, the difference is if we have a Division 1 program back at home, a lot of these kids might be saying, "Hey, you know what? I don't need to go somewhere else." Right? Like myself, maybe if there was a Wichita State, maybe I stay and I'm a shocker, right? Who knows? Maybe I don't have to go to the junior college route. Maybe I don't have to go to Minnesota and Nebraska. Maybe I go to K State. Maybe I go to KU. But either way, they're a Big 12 school. We could easily get in that conference, and we can make something happen there. But it's just we got to have the right people in action to take place and
yeah.
really have a passion for it who want to make a change in the state of Kansas. And I
No,
think I think that too is one of the biggest things as well is is we don't see a lot of promise, right? Ultimately, if we're looking at somewhere, it's Oklahoma or Oklahoma State. Like
yeah,
that's the closest thing to us. Maybe a Nebraska or a Missouri or something like that, but it's in the Midwest, right? Like we don't really stray too far outside of that. I mean, you even look at guys back in the day, Tyler Caldwell, Oklahoma State, OU, right? Boaz Beard, Iowa State. Like
yeah.
those guys back in the day, they're going to surrounding schools in the Midwest. So if we could get something like that in Kansas, I just think it helps us with numbers wise. We're going to get more kids coming out. It's going to be more competitive, obviously. And then we get some good Kansas guys to stay. We could probably make some noise in Kansas and be known for our wrestling.
Yeah, well, and I think a lot of the biggest issue is funds, for sure. But, realistically, I just don't feel like it takes that much of a fund to start a program. I mean, give us a facility, get us a couple of mats. And I mean, yeah, you're going to have some travel expenses, and some scholarships and stuff like that. But you can't tell me that these universities aren't pulling in thousands and thousands of dollars. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there just isn't that funds around there. But I got a very hard time believing that there isn't 20 guys that all are Kansas,
Right.
alumni wrestlers that probably would go, hey, you know what? I'll throw some money together to help you guys get this started, for the
Yep.
first 5 years. And after that, with how far production wise wrestling has gotten, you can't tell me that those arenas won't be packed out every single duel, every single tournament, and they'll make money hand over fist to keep that program running, you
And I
know?
think one thing is at least back in the day, like previously, right? Maybe you think probably five, anywhere from I don't know, you could say even 4 to 10 years ago, right? There's women's wrestling really isn't that big of a thing, right?
Yeah,
I think a lot of the schools are probably looking at wrestling, at least in Kansas wise, from a standpoint of like a Title IX type of thing, right?
right.
Where we need the same amount of sports for each male and female, right?
Yep, yep.
Well, the great thing about wrestling is women's wrestling is taking off astronomically, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've got girls on the world team, we've got an Iowa women's team, we've got so now really the only thing we can say is, hey, listen, the only thing we're going to do for you as a university is bring you 40 more athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we're going to help athletes graduate, but that's only going to bring up the graduation rate, right? So what we're doing is better for the university and better for kids.
Yeah.
So if we get a men's and women's, and then boom, they can use the same facilities, right? They can practice in the same wrestling room. They can lift the same weights. It doesn't matter. They might not say same times, but overall, if we get a couple people who can say, hey, okay, yeah, I can donate here, I can donate there, and then we could get something going in Kansas. Like I said, I think numbers wise, and obviously for the universities itself, everybody would benefit, right? So
No, agreed.
I
I
think
think
like that.
nationally, and I'll have to have Cole look this up, but I think nationally, overall sports, I want to say women's wrestling was the highest growing sport like the last 3 years in a row. So, and I mean, I would believe it with how many girls we've had here.
Yeah,
I think the last 3 years, at the kids club level, the girls just kind of got a free ride, basically. The state tournament. They didn't have to wrestle at districts if they didn't want to. They could, but if they registered for districts, made weight, they automatically went. This year, we're sitting in the state body meeting, and they said, "Hey, we got so many girls now that they're going to have to qualify. Otherwise this tournament's going to go forever. There's going to be 1,000 girls, registered for the tournament just on the girls' side. So,
right.
you can't tell me that it's not growing.
Yeah,
But like I say, I think that would be, one of the biggest deals. And so, anyways, and you can't tell me they want to talk about coaches' salaries and different things like that, especially at a starting program. You can't tell me there's not guys like James Bilby, or Lars Luters, or, Carlos Pareto, or, Clint Slider, or somebody like that. They're going to go, look, pay me 40 grand a year, if that, and I'll run this dang program, And then after the first 5 years, when all of a sudden it's like, hey, we're winning Big 12 championships, we're qualifying 12 to the dang national tournament, then they go, okay, hey, let's renew this contract and talk
right.
about it.
And I mean, I don't. This is no shot at anybody that you just named or listed, but I don't know if I agree with that whole list. But I even think um, some of the older guys of the generations and stuff, like that. I think that they could benefit Kansas wrestling in a huge way, right? With just knowing these kids, getting to know these kids. When these kids go to Fargo, these kids go to all these other camps and stuff like that, right? So
Right.
these kids are going to be well known. But then I also feel like, it's our priority too. Um, since I've been gone from college, I still stay watching the Kansas high school wrestling tournament.
Right.
Um, I
Just
know
to
multiple
just
kids.
dip
I
in
know
real quick,
multiple
the
kids
the
wrestling.
question about the women's collegiate wrestling has grown by 40%, which is the most any out of any other sport since 2020.
Yeah. So and that's what I'm saying is, I feel like I said, it's also our responsibility too. When I say, guys like us who wrestle, we also have an obligation too. We're coaches. We can do the same thing, right? We have a vision. We have something that we want to chase. Like we can go do that, right? Like if we want to change something, if it's gonna start, the only way it's gonna start is if you make something happen, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
we got to be a leading force in that as well, just as much as the older generation does for the youth.
Right. Right. Well, I agree with you on that part of it. You and guys like Zach Gensler and Michael Prieto, y'all can get together and do that. I'll stick with my 14-year-olds and 12-year-olds
Right.
because I
Right.
ain't I ain't on that level. But no. So
Well,
speaking
it's
of
really
those
it's
two,
really
go
a
ahead.
knowledge thing, though. It's not a dude. I mean, I can't sit here and say, hey, you know what? I've had the best Division 1 career out of anyone who ever walked the face of the earth, right? I can't say that. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I had the worst career either,
Right. Right.
but I was an average D1 guy, right? I would like to think of myself as above average, but from a statistical standpoint, I was an average D1 guy. Okay, but that has nothing to do with it, right? Like you can be a great coach. Someone could not even wrestle and still be a great coach. My dad, terrible wrestler. Now he knows a little bit, right?
Yeah.
He
I
knows.
think I think he'll
But
be
when I'm growing up, my dad's brothers were both state champions. My dad was never a state champion,
right.
so it's just funny because like it's really about the coach, it's about the coach and what and how you can coach kids up and stuff like that. It's about creating that rapport with another athlete and letting them know that you've been through some similar stuff or you haven't, but you're going to help them navigate through it one way or another.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and and quite honestly, I'm glad that you brought up, the knowledge thing, because I mean, at this point, that's one of the biggest things that just drives me nuts is, I'm so tired of all of these kids club coaches, that just won't get with the times and they won't learn, and they're still teaching their kids, before they're teaching them how to do, a sweep single correctly, run the corner, shelf the leg, double off
Yep.
towards the back of the ankle. They're teaching them headlocks, and
Yep.
3/4 stacks and stuff like that. And I'm going, guys, can you stop? Like, and the excuse of, oh, well, we just don't have the knowledge to be able to do that is completely gone. With the platforms that are out now, like Jake at Ironclad in Alabama, super,
Right.
super, super great guy. I've talked to him multiple times, and we're actually going to have him on the podcast next week.
Okay.
So plug to that, listeners. Tune in next week to listen to Jake from Ironclad. He's a fantastic guy.
Right.
But you can go pay I think it's like $80, and he gives you an entire coach's, basically step 1 to step
Right.
500,
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
everything he shows. And his guys in Alabama, they're taking on the country by storm. I mean, his program that he's got there is fantastic, and not even him, you got compound wrestling, USA Wrestling's got a bunch of stuff out. Like, there's just no excuse for people to say, "Oh, I don't have the knowledge anymore,"
Right.
So these club kids and these club coaches that go, "Well, I haven't wrestled since the 80s or 90s," or, "Oh, I never wrestled at all." Well, take the time, educate yourself, so that way, you can grow these kids at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. So that way, when coaches like me, who are dealing with a little bit older kids, and then, high school guys, we don't have to almost start over with them. I don't
Right.
know how many times there's been kids that I get that, and not recently, because we've really nailed down on our program, but to start with, there was so many kids that I would get, and I'm going, who taught you this? What are you doing?
Right.
And we've talked about it multiple times. Cole's sitting here laughing at me, but we've talked about it so many times about doing a mic'd up deal in the corner, because just some of the stuff that gets said whenever I'm coaching some of these kids or watching, somebody else's kid, and I'm going,
Right.
why are you doing that? Just stop.
Yeah.
Just stop. Roll over on your back and get pinned, because this is ugly.
Yeah.
But so, we got about 3 minutes left here, and we'll probably call that, the first step. And I'm glad that you came on, and we'll definitely have you on again for sure. Don't think that
Yeah.
that we're kicking you off early, but
Yeah.
um,
No, no, no.
okay. So something I wanted to do with you that I thought would be cool here. Um, give me your top 5 Kansas high school wrestler list. Doesn't have to be in order, just top 5. You give me yours, I'm gonna give you mine, and we'll end it with that.
Ever?
Oh yeah. So let's say 2000 to previous.
Uh. Okay.
Sorry to put you on the spot here, but
Yeah. You got to go Kendrick Maple.
oh yeah,
Um.
Hunter Edwards, if you're listening.
um, This is real tough, dude. You put me on the spot here.
Yeah.
This
Oh
might
yeah.
have to be something that
Yep.
we continue on episode 2.
Yep.
But I'm gonna say Kendrick, for sure. Um, Man, this is so tough. You got to throw Dap in there or Sean DeShazer. Dap
Yep.
or Sean, one of those two.
Yep.
Um, Man, I'm trying to think who else.
You got 2 more. You got 2 more.
Um, I can't say myself.
Think West. Think West.
I'm gonna say Tristan DeShazer, 4-timer.
Okay.
Um, and man, who else? I gotta go. Oh, my cousin, Doug Hoover.
Okay. Okay. So I've had time to think about this a little bit, but my top 5 here, okay, is gonna be Kendrick, Sean, Michael Prado from Garden City.
Oh yeah, he's 4-timer.
Yep. Zach Gensler.
Yep, 4-timer. Yep.
Yep. And then oh gosh dang it, now I'm forgetting who the 4th or the 5th one was. Uh gosh dang it. Oh sorry, Kendall and Cameron Frame. And
Okay.
they count as one just because they wrestled each other in way too many national championship matches. So
And both got
they only get one spot.
Right.
So anyways, all right, man. This wraps up episode 1. Thank you guys for
Yes, sir.
listening. Boo, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it, and we'll get with you on the next one.
Yes, sir.
Talk to you later, man.
See ya.